City of Saratoga Springs tonight, Tuesday, December 5th, 2023 at 6:02 p.m. Present tonight, I have Councilman Podeska, Councilman McComber, Councilman Wilden, Councilman Carn. So we do have a quorum for this evening. I've asked Councilman Wilden to lead us in our invocation and Councilman Podeska to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful this day and we're grateful this evening to be gathered as a council and mayor, and we're grateful for the opportunity to evaluate these different items coming before us to help improve the lives of our friends, neighbors, and residents of this great community. And we ask thee to bless those as they travel this evening, that they'll be able to do so in safety. And we ask thee to bless all those throughout the city with peace. And these things we say in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
So the audience, please arise and repeat the pledge after me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay. Election canvass.
Mayor and Council, we have just received the final tally from the municipal general election this year, and I left a short summary on your desk to look over, and the full precinct report is in your Dropbox and will be included with the certified report.
Okay. If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the Saratoga Springs General Municipal Election Canvass Resolution R23-55 dated today, and congratulate Chris Karn, Lance Wadman, and Audrey Barton.
A second. Okay, I have a first from Councilman Podeska, first from Councilman McComber, second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion? Karn?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Podeska? Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, just one note to remind you that that resolution needs to be signed by all of you.
I think we've got most of them. I think we're waiting yet, just a couple more here.
Thank you.
Forgot, thank you.
Perfect. Now we have an oath of office. Mark, do you want to make introductions before we get into that?
Yes, if I could. Cindy, would you please come forward? You see that look, that joyful look.
That's not forward, that's.
That's standing.
Ladies and gentlemen, our current city recorder, Cindy LaPiccolo, this is her last city council meeting with us. And we wanted to show some appreciation for her and thank her for everything that she has done for us. And so we have a sign for her that we would like to give to her at this time. Come on, Cindy, come forward.
Picture.
Smile. Austerity.
Thank you so much.
And with Cindy, without our permission, leaving us for retirement, we do have a replacement who has been there helping the city, working hard with us for a long time. We will, Nicolette, if you want to come up, we will swear you in tonight as the new city recorder. Okay. Which way works best for photographer?
Come over here.
Okay.
Well, then she's going to come over here because she wants her face, not yours, Jim. There you go. That'll work.
Okay. You raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I, Nicolette Fike, do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
That's a big baton to pass.
So,
We appreciate what the city recorder does for us.
yes, thank you both. Thank you for your willingness to take that role. And Cindy, thank you for all of your service and keeping us in line.
And keeping you out of jail.
Yeah, keeping
Barely.
barely. Public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on the agenda. If you're here for the public hearing for the budget amendment, please hold your comments for the public hearing. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is anybody here for public input at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public input and go to reports. Councilman Podesta?
So I had the opportunity to go to the city tree lighting. That's always such a fun event. And fireworks are always much appreciated. So appreciate all of the city staff that helped put that together. And then also wanted to, sorry to see that Councilman Porter's not here. Wanted to thank him for his service through the many years, and also before being on city council, he was here at the meetings a lot. And so I appreciate his service and also serving along with all you guys. It's been a great honor. Just wanted to serve 2 terms, and so that's the end of this. And but yeah, it's been me and Councilman McCumber were just mentioning that it's been 20 years that my family's been involved with the city, and so it's been good.
20 of 26.
Yeah.
Make sure that's clear.
So, okay. Any other comments? Anything from administration, Mark?
Mayor, not at this time.
Okay. Department reports are in the packet. Public hearing, budget amendment fiscal year 2023, 2024.
This is the third budget amendment for this fiscal year. A few items of note is due to the high interest rates, we're revising a lot of our interest rate revenues upwards. It's just we didn't anticipate the extra revenue that we have seen. In addition, we have a couple different adjustments to various capital projects and also to our insurance costs as well. Any questions for staff at this time?
Any questions from the council?
Just wonderful economy.
This is a public hearing, so I will open it up for public input on the budget amendment fiscal year 2023, 2024. Please state your name and address for the record. Please avoid repetitive comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is anybody here for the public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion from the council.
So made.
I have a first from Councilman McComber.
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Wilden. Any further discussion? Karn?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the consent item. We are appointing new members of the Planning Commission, so I'd like to take just a minute and let Sarah introduce those to the council before we approve.
Come forward.
Yeah.
We have 2 new planning commissioners that we are going to be appointing, and one that has served 4 years and is willing to serve another 4 years, and we'll be reappointing him. So we have Reed Ryan, he's been on our commission for 4 years, and then we have Virginia Mann, as she has a background in real estate, and then we have Jack Mangum, and he has a background in banking. But we would also like them to take a second to introduce themselves. So go ahead, come on up.
Thank you. Jack Mangum. I live on Colt Drive, right above the golf course. And yeah, I've had, as far as my work life, I worked at Bank of American Fork, now Alta Bank, for about 17 years, a commercial loan officer, and now I'm at Bank of Utah, been there for 2 years, and same thing, commercial loan officer, business relationships. So excited to learn some new things on the Planning Commission, and it's time to get involved in city business. So happy to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Virginia Mann. My background is in real estate, primarily new construction. I've been in the industry for going on about 6 years now. Living in Saratoga Springs for 3, and it grew on my family so quickly. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to give back to this wonderful community and just be a part of all of this.
Thank you.
I'm the guy that decided to stick around for 4 more years, so happy to do that. Reed Ryan. I live just off of Stillwater Drive down at the south end of town. And I've thoroughly enjoyed time on the Planning Commission and look forward to 4 more years of service. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Is there any questions from the council for any of them? Okay.
No.
Perfect.
Thank you. Welcome.
Also on here is the library board appointments. Is Melissa? Okay.
Sorry, Melissa couldn't be here, and neither could the individual who is being appointed, but they are excited to serve and would appreciate a approval of them joining the library board, so.
Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion on the consent items.
I move to approve the consent items as listed on the agenda.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman Carn, second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Business item 1, amendment to the fee schedule for garbage and recycling cans.
Evening, Mayor and Council again. This is an amendment to the fee schedule for garbage recycling, construction water, and sewage treatment. Staff recommends these changes to keep up with increases brought about by Republic and TSSD. Are there any questions for staff at this time?
Any questions?
The organization that helped with the assessment, who was that again?
Sorry, what was that?
Who helped us with the assessment of the fee schedule?
That was staff.
Just internal?
Yeah, two of the fees were direct pass-alongs from Republic Services for our garbage, and then the TSSD price is the cost per 1,000 gallons that they're raising their rates at the TSSD Sewer Board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to point out that it's a pass along.
Yeah.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of business item 1 as stated on the agenda.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden,
Second?
second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Business item 2. Is that you, Sarah?
Okay. This one, we don't have a PowerPoint. You have seen the Stavenet development a couple of times. Had it here for discussion last time about permitted uses, and it's been added to the for your approval if you choose.
Okay. Is the applicant here? They want to come up to the hot seats? Is there any comments, questions from the council?
I don't. We've seen this several times.
You're good?
Yeah.
Look at how easy that hot seat was. Do you have anything you want to add? Okay. And I will,
You've had your time in the hot seat before when it wasn't as.
then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve business item number 2 dated today with any staff findings and conditions.
I'll second that.
I have a first from Councilman Podeska, second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Podeska?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. North Shore Commercial Parking,
That's me as well. Let's see. Just need to turn this on. This is a request for a parking consideration for the North Shore Commerce Development for one building in particular at 659 North Redwood Road. And okay. The code requires the applicant to submit a traffic review to support their request for a parking determination. The specific uses, trampoline park and athletic training, are not in our code. The closest we have is commercial recreation and educational center. However, the applicant would like to propose consideration of parking ratios for these particular uses. Their traffic study indicates that they have 1.77 stalls per 1,000 square feet, and they are proposing to stripe an additional 22 stalls behind the building. In their study, it indicates 157 stalls, and that they would have 1.53 stalls per 1,000 for the warehouse flex space. In the Saratoga Code, the warehouse space is pretty flexible, and so that's meeting the Saratoga Code. And then for Sky Zone, they are proposing 14 stalls on weekdays and 64 stalls on weekends. And they're proposing that the Sky Zone could use the stalls of the other businesses when they're closed on the weekends. And then for Red Line Athletics, they're proposing 29 stalls. Here's a diagram of what's being proposed. And then staff did review other similar, look for other similarities in adjacent cities. We actually struggled to find similarities, and you can see from this graphic that they're all over the place for indoor entertainment, amusement center, commercial entertainment. So they're ranging between 2 per 1,000 and 10 per 1,000. So it is kind of all over the place. And then for athletic instruction, we did find that Lehigh has that in their code at 3.33 per 1,000. And then we actually looked at Scottsdale, Arizona, because there is a Red Line Athletics there. So we wanted to see what they had required, and that was 5 per 1,000. And anyhow, they're not proposing what's standard in other city codes. However, they are proposing this request, and the applicant, I believe, has a presentation as well.
Can you go back to our chart, one more? Yeah, thank you.
this
Right,
one
no,
here.
yeah, that one, thank you.
And this is their proposal from their traffic study. So this is what you're seeing here.
I think it's
This applicant has a slideshow, you said? Slide deck?
No? Oh, you have a slide? Are this, you have slides, right? I do. Okay, I'll pull them up.
Good evening. Sarah, thank you very much for working.
She's not on.
What?
Can you hear me okay?
We'll turn you on.
Sorry.
There you go.
Thank you, Sarah. So we've been working on leasing the North Shore Commerce Center over the last several months. Our goal has been to bring a broad mix of tenants and uses, including community-based recreational uses, as well as the more traditional office, warehouse, entrepreneurial space. So for Building 3, we are fairly well leased up, and we are excited to bring 2 tenants, which are first to market in Utah, and they are national. Red Line Athletics is a national franchise, very successful. They specialize in one-on-one and small group training of young athletes, optimization, agility, speed. It's a cool concept. It's a very one-on-one sort of concept, small groups. And the other concept is the gold standard, I believe, in trampoline parks. Sky Zone is an international franchise. It is not your typical sort of free-for-all trampoline park. It's a monitored, attraction-based park that has some very stringent and well disciplined, well-researched operational directives from the franchise. We've been very, very impressed working with both Sky Zone and Red Line at the depth of the franchise knowledge and interaction with us as the landlord, for everything from design all the way through construction. So these are terrific uses, and we're very excited that they are first to market. We've done a lot of looking at recreational use tenants for North Shore, and we've turned down quite a few of them because we have had traffic and parking related concerns. We feel that because of these two operations, uses, and the way that their businesses are run, that we can easily accommodate them at North Shore, and we're very excited to bring them to this community. We do have the principal of Sky Zone here tonight as well, if there are questions as we go through the presentation. We engaged Hales Engineering to do an independent study of parking and traffic, and Ryan is here to present his study, which we feel is very positive and supports our premise that we can make these businesses work at North Shore and bring them to Saratoga Springs. So thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Mayor and council, I'll be quick in my comments. I only have about 6 slides, so I'll go through them fairly quickly. With me tonight is Joseph Browning. Joseph also worked on this. He's just back here, so he's the smart guy behind all of this. I'm just here to talk about a couple of slides with you, so let's move on to the next slide. Just wanted to show the vicinity map of where this is located so that you could take a quick look at it. This North Shore number 3 parking study is just specifically to this building. Let's go to the next slide, Sarah, thank you. With the 22 additional stalls that are on the south side of the building in blue at the bottom of the screen, those 22 additional stalls raise the total stall count to 179 stalls on site. Next slide. What I want to do is just talk about the parking needs. We looked at it both from a weekday and a weekend. On a weekday parking need, we need, the demand is 107 stalls, so we have 72 extra stalls or surplus where we could have overflow parking. On a weekend, we have 94 stall demand with 85 surplus stalls. Because we have a different time of day and day of use, there are no parties at one of the facilities. They will only be on Saturday, and that's when the other stalls are unoccupied. The businesses will not be there. So that helps in the co-utilization of those stalls, and that's the only way we can really make this work. Next slide, Sarah. Last couple of slides, the circulation plan. What we've contemplated is a clockwise circulation. It's very similar to what we did at Rio Tinto Stadium, where we wanted the clockwise circulation to come in and have people come in, park, and then depart the same way going clockwise so that we don't have as much counterflow issues and problems. As people come in and sign up for whether it's the athletic training facility, we'll inform them, or they'll be informed by the owners of that, the direction of flow. When they call for a party, they'll be informed of the direction of flow, enter from the south, circulate the building in a clockwise manner. In this way, we'll try and get the flow more consistent. Next slide. So in summary, we have 179 stall supply. We can meet the demand of both weekday and weekend with surplus stalls of 72 and 85 during weekday and weekend. The clockwise circulation plan we've recommended to Elizabeth and the group, so they'll be working on that. And with that, I would entertain any questions you might have.
Okay, Councilman McComber.
Yeah, so I just appreciate the effort and stuff that the study is going to this. This is your tenants today. The problem is there's no law, there's no ordinance that says these have to be the tenants forever. So my concern is that when I do parking, I have to do it based on the long haul, right? And so things can happen, things can change. That flex space, the warehouse tenant that's helping you with your the extra parking on weekends. What if a karate place wants to come in or a gymnastics facility, and then all of a sudden it's not going to work? We have a lot of flexibility in this, but I also want to make sure that we're meeting those. I'm looking at other cities that historically, Lehigh is famous for underparking. And the residents of Lehigh, as residents of Saratoga Springs, used to always complain and hate going to Lehigh because they underpark and you had to park behind the building and walk literally 1,000 feet to get all the way back and around because you couldn't get in anywhere. They actually have a higher standard. Example, what you were showing earlier, Lehigh, than what we're proposing here. So that's a red flag for me because historically Lehigh has always been underparked in everything. And they also have experience with this because they have multiple trampoline facilities throughout their city in multiple places. I did drive by their trampoline place on a weekday. It was Monday afternoon. I did it yesterday. And the parking lots were so packed. And I didn't have time to go in and ask. I was going to ask the manager, like, do you wish you had more parking and things like that? But so that's just a little bit of a concern. So again, I'm 1 of 5 on here, but as I'm looking through this, and I appreciate staff going and looking at other examples, and especially even the firm in Arizona coming here and stuff, that company is going to be very successful. People in Utah invest in their kids. There's a reason why we have some of the best athletes and the best dancers in the country coming out of Utah is because families invest in that. So this private, more one-on-one, they're going to be at capacity almost always. This trampoline facility also sounds very unique, and people are going to look at it as more of an attraction than just like a place to dump their kids for babysitting. And it's also, I believe, going to be very popular. I'm concerned that, once again, I have other businesses, maybe I won't name them. We have 2 sit-down restaurants that came in and have both regretted underparking and underbuilding their buildings, like not making it more tables inside and not having more parking. And then my last question is for staff is, do they meet all of the all of the island requirements, all the median requirements?
Well, let me go back to the diagram. They would not with the parking that they're adding in the back.
You're not on either, right?
Oh,
They would not, they do in the front with all of the existing parking, in the parking that's being proposed in the back, they would not. However, we don't necessarily recommend that they add those because if it does switch back to office warehouse later, then there would be islands in the way of, trucks. There are spaces where there's doors, so they do have 10 stalls and then a gap for a door and then another 10 stalls.
So, I guess why I want to bring it up, because I think we need to call out that when there's variances to things. So I wanted to make sure that we have that if we decide to go forward, that we're giving them a variance not to meet the island code in the back. And so having that space for the doors is great. I think that I would assume that you're going to require that the employees use those parking spots in the back because they have a door.
Yeah.
Get in there. So that would be great not to see a bunch of signs in the front saying Employee of the Month parking in the front, taking up spots, or 20-minute drop-off parking only. I hate those. I hate that the restaurants have doing it since post-COVID. That's not ordinance. They don't have the right to take required parking stalls and say this is 10-minute Uber driver pickup parking only. That's not allowed. They do it in their parking lots, but we don't allow that. That's not, no one's gonna get towed. I'm telling all the people here, especially young people, if there's no parking and it's like you're coming to pick up curbside parking, you're allowed to park there whenever you want. Feel free to do so. I do it all the time, especially at Chili's. Oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry. With their 24 spots. But yeah, so I appreciate the flow of the traffic and stuff, but I just get nervous around the change of tenant. And that can happen in a few years, 5 years, 2 years. So that's my only hang up. So I yield the time back to you, Mayor, and thank you.
Councilman Carn?
So a question for staff, or maybe Fred, can we do a conditional approval on if the tenant changes, it reverts back to our code?
No, you can't take away, future legislative authority, if that makes sense.
That's not what I'm asking, I don't think. Can we approve it conditionally upon these tenants? And if the tenants change, then the variance
Would not be there.
goes back to code.
Doesn't inherit.
Yeah, they don't, wouldn't inherit the variance tenant to tenant.
I think that you could do that, and the reason why is that the way that the code is worded is that they have to meet these criteria for you to approve it. You know, they provided a traffic study specific to these uses. So if other uses came in, it seems it would be appropriate that they either meet the code in place or provide another traffic study for review.
Yeah, but I'm comfortable approving it with that condition that if the tenants change,
They need a new traffic study.
That it would need to meet.
it needs to be tied to the tenant use.
Right, it would meet the code,
Yeah.
right.
Mark?
And I apologize, the term variance is a legal, technical definition that does not apply to what you're doing. You
Okay.
can't grant variances. You can authorize, this study, and you can authorize this, a condition, but this is, you're not granting a variance, that's a
Okay.
different process.
So we're doing a condition, but like to Chris's point, if we add a condition that says if new tenants, then they have to meet.
New traffic study, they had to meet. Yeah, meet the
I
code.
would be,
Yeah.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
I think we may have answered my question, but we used to do like shared parking agreements. Is that something we still do or do not? Did we get rid of those after they?
It's all one tenant that owns the,
There's multiple tenants.
yeah, but it's one landowner.
They do have a shared
I see.
parking agreement. They can all park here and they can all park on the other site too.
Okay.
No issue with parking, I mean, with sharing parking, from my understanding.
Correct.
So that they already have that in place,
Okay.
whoever goes in here.
I'm sorry, I was late. So that's on me.
no, it wasn't
So
my-
I'm just like, so
wasn't-
then what is the condition that they are not meeting? I didn't,
So what happens in this situation is we don't have athletic training or trampoline park specifically listed in the code, and the code
Got it.
therefore allows them to propose a parking ratio.
Got it.
With a traffic study showing how, supporting their proposal. We have criteria in the code that the report has to address. So they have submitted the required report. The discussion is the proposal that they're making. So the proposal that they're making is right here. So for the Sky Zone Athletics, or Sky Zone, which is a trampoline park, for the weekdays, they're proposing 14 stalls, and then for the weekends, they're proposing 64 stalls. And then for Red Line Athletics, they're proposing 29 stalls. And then the other spaces in there are flex warehouse space, which already meet the code, so that's not under question. And then we looked at other cities and compared, but we didn't find a lot of comparisons, to be honest.
Yeah.
We did call Airborne and Draper and get some feedback from them and find out what their code is. We also called Linden and also called the Airborne Linden. And then the closest Red Line Athletics is in Scottsdale, Arizona. So we looked at their code and we also called them just to get feedback on whether or not their parking is working. So Linden has more than is required by code and way more than what you're seeing at this site. And Airborne and Draper, they do a lot of programming there, and it's hard to compare because we don't know if the programming here is the same. But they fill their parking lot daily.
okay. So, and I apologize to the rest of the council that they probably got double doses of this, but
Probably have to address it in our code.
yeah, I think we probably should address just because these Airborne and Jump On It or what, I don't
Yeah.
remember what
Sky.
name, Sky
Zone.
Zone.
Guys,
Sky Zone.
They are popular in our area. I doubt this is the last. I'm glad you guys are the first ones here. You guys will get the first mover bonus, but I think that we probably do need to come up with a standard going forward.
And just, let me add too, there's a possible motion for approval, and if that does get approved, there's a condition that they stripe the 22 parking stalls behind the building that they're showing, and then you could add whatever condition that you choose. There's also a possible motion for denial, and that just says that based on the data from other cities and codes and facilities, that it's not quite there. So it's really your decision.
All right. Based on what Councilman Karn suggested, I'm comfortable moving forward with that, so.
Councilman Podesta? Oh, we have one comment from the attorney really quick, Council.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Sarah, if there are subsequent uses that are different from this use, they would be required to comply with our parking code that is in place for that use.
Okay.
So if the use changes, it's already in place.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Councilman Podesta?
Okay, yeah, I agree with the comments on creating code so that it's just a standard for these new types of businesses. I had a couple questions. So flex spaces are notorious, a great spot for these type of businesses like athletics and Sky Zones. I'm confused on the traffic study for the weekday, though. Is that not counting weekday nights? Because I still see those places very popular in the evenings, even though it's
Yeah.
a weekday.
They're definitely popular in the evenings. We looked at a worst-case scenario by time of day. And so that worst-case scenario is what proved out. One of the things that we did go and do, we looked at the Chandler, Arizona site. It serves a 12-mile radius, and that's the Sky Zone itself. The population in that area is Chandler, Mesa, Gilbert, Guadalupe, and Tempe, and it's about 1.3 million people. The area that we're looking at here, a 12-mile radius, would include portions of different areas, but Eagle Mountain, of course, Lehigh, Highland, Alpine, Draper, Bluffdale, Riverton, Harriman, and Port, Pleasant Grove, Orem, Vineyard, as well as Saratoga Springs, with a combined population of about 600,000. So we're about double, and we got the information from them. So we feel pretty good about the time of day. Councilmember McComber, I hope that addresses part of your question.
You're just going to be really popular.
Yeah.
Well, we hope it is popular, but we also hope that they curb their use. And certainly, any change in land use, we'd want to come back and make sure, not only for Elizabeth's sake at the buildings and having the buildings operate well with parking, but for the end users as well. The last thing we want is a nightmare in parking.
Well, I guess that kind of brings to the point that you guys did reduce your parking on purpose, and then these businesses come in, and then you wanted to increase the allowable parking units. And so that's just kind of, we wish you would have put in more parking in the beginning, because we know these flex spaces are popular, and it's kind of one of our first products here in the city. And that kind of brings up the concern of the parking in the back of the building. So if customers are parking in the back, how do they access the businesses? Walk around to the front?
It's only employee parking in the back,
Only employee
only
parking?
employee parking.
So on busy nights where, because like these airborne places, stuff like that are in Utah County, their parking always spills over into the street. And so back in the day when I used to help manage sports complexes, when things got busy, they would park in the back. And so I see on this overhead map here that they'll be parking along that south curb and along the back of the building, parallel parking or however they park.
Yeah.
And so just by path of least resistance, that's what customers are going to be doing. And so are there sidewalks around the back of those buildings for them to be able to get to the front?
I would turn to Elizabeth.
No, there are no sidewalks. It's, the back of the building is all paved, and the employee parking is at 90 degrees to the building. And the employee entrance is at the back with a card key sort of access as well. So
will the rest be like red zone, like no parking?
it's just not, I mean, we could accommodate whatever the recommendation would be, but there's no parking identified other than employee parking in the back.
Okay.
To your point, people are going to use it.
Yeah, and so even though it's not marked, it will get used for parking, which will then cause your clockwise traffic pattern to be disrupted with customers crossing traffic on those busy nights. I'm not talking about like just normal business days, but when this is overcrowded, because Redline Athletics is mostly one-on-one, but they're going to have some teams and things like that that will, whenever that comes to the same timing of the Sky Zone. So it's just concerns, again, with parking, because it's always underparked here in our city. Every business is underparked. And so we like to see the businesses thrive, and parking limits that for them. A couple other things was, no, I think everything else has actually been addressed. That's all my comments.
Okay. Councilman Wilden?
I think my question was answered by our legal department, but it's tied to uses, not tenants, right? Is that how our code is?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so we don't, that's just part of the normal approval process.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, because I'd prefer if they change their name to Sky Zone to Cloud Zone or whatever, that it doesn't trigger a new approval or something like that.
Perfect. There's
What?
There's no other comments. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve, sorry, getting there. Business item 3, with all staff findings and conditions, adding we don't need to add a condition, right? Because it's already in there. So with all staff findings and conditions.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Porter.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion?
I do have one, I'm sorry. One of them, it's circled, you don't have it up there, but there's the tenant, so we don't know the use of that yet, the green one, or teal.
So they'll have to come in and meet
Correct.
the parking.
So okay, we don't know what use that is, or
They'll have to do a study, they'll have to come in.
it'll have to be minimal use because we're pretty crowded now, so whatever that is.
Not gonna be a
it's-
lot of
Don't come back in and ask for another variance.
Okay.
We don't do
You can't ask for variances.
We don't do variance.
Exception to the variance.
I hear you. We do plan for the other, the 3 tenants besides the 2 recreation uses that we're talking about here tonight. They are planned as a more traditional office warehouse use so that we do maintain our ample parking. We have one already leased and about ready to open on the far west corner, and the other 2 are in the LOI stage, so I'm pretty confident
Okay.
that we'll move forward with both of those.
No, that just sounds good. At least I'm one of 5 that would vote when you come back, but if you ask for another exception, Mark, the answer would be no. So it's gonna have to be a
Got
low
it.
use to make the rest of this work.
Roll call. Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
And Karn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Please do
Thank
not
you.
let the businesses put on only this can park
Okay.
here.
You got it.
Thank you.
My
I
personal
can't force
promise.
it, but I just ask you not to do that.
Especially the Councilman McComber only sign. Don't,
Yeah, oh,
none of that.
okay. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Council and Sarah.
Let me copy it.
Although, if they had a Councilman Will, I'd be okay with
Be all right. Well, there's a will, there's a way.
Okay, we have the North Cove Development Agreement.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, what I have before you is the North Cove Phasing Plan. Excuse me. Back on October 17th, you approved the development agreement. The phasing plan was something that needed to be corrected. We brought that back before you for a decision. The developer is here to answer questions. They also have a presentation for you, I believe. But just to give you some information here, the phasing, they show on the original phasing plan, they did show the percentage of commercial versus residential in each phase. You can see that the percentage for each phase is there on the right-hand side, and then the residential numbers is on the right as well. But the phasing plan, one of the biggest changes is they got rid of that A and B initially that was presented to you. But they also provided a narrative and some notes for that. So with that, like I said, the developer is here, and do you have a presentation? PowerPoint? Okay. So,
Yeah. If you guys want to come up to the hot seats. But place of honor. It's Councilman Porter you got to worry about.
so if you have any questions or anything for them,
so far.
You said you had a
Sure.
presentation first, or?
Sure, not a PowerPoint or anything, but basically wanted to just to walk through. It became, I'm Ross Holliday, I'm with the Development Group. And one of the things that we thought would be very important, there were some questions that surfaced last time, could have created a misunderstanding of our, not only just intent, but what we've actually applied for and what is contained in the development agreement. So I've got a few notes here, bear with me, but I think it's important to understand that as we're seeking for this approval in the mixed waterfront zone, one of the requirements of that zone, based on what you're able to bring in terms of a residential commercial mix, we have elected to do the higher commercial mix. So we're at 49% commercial with 51% being residential. It's important to also remember this is not a PUD, right? This is, and I want to be extremely clear of what we're not asking for, right? And I think this is important. We're not asking for a conditional use. We're not asking for a variance. We're not asking for an exception to the development standards. We are not asking for incremental or additional density. I think maybe that somehow got left in the mindset last time based on some prior applications on the project. But currently, as was shown on that phasing map, and based on the residential and commercial counts that are reflected on your screen in front of you, there are no exceptions. And I think that's just, we could sense in some of the questions and some of the concerns around the phasing that somehow was in the mind and in your concern. So because of that, what has been presented in that picture and provided to staff received approval for being compliant with the mixed waterfront zone. This is what's reflected in the phasing plan. In our last conversation, in the last meeting, there was some concern around the timing of commercial versus residential. And so what's currently being reflected in here, and we think it's also critical to make sure that we're speaking the same language. So, when we say horizontal improvements, we're referring to curb, gutter, streets, asphalt, right? When we say vertical, we're talking about the construction of an actual building that requires a building permit, right? Two separate events. Developers typically focus on the entitlement, the approval of the horizontal improvements, and then through a very separate process, somebody walks in, applies for a site plan application on a commercial property, asks for, makes application for that permit. So what we are defining is in these phases, and I think the moral of the story, what the phasing narrative communicates currently, in clarification to our last meeting, is that phase one would be installed first, right? Horizontal improvements. We then, in anticipation to move to the second phase, what would be required to move into the second phase is that the mixed use, so if you're looking at just lot numbers, that 96 through 107, that's a combined product that has a residential component with then a leased component in the front, commercial. So upon receiving a permit and moving forward on that building, that then creates a trigger and a waterfall in the sequence that we can then move to phase two. Now, in phase two, the same thing, to be able to move from a phase two to phase three, we then have the ability to either construct an additional mixed-use building, and that would be your lots in the yellow, 108 to 117, or, and this is important that it's or, that we would be moving ahead on the commercial pad that you see on the bottom right of the screen. And so we're excited for that. We actually have some good news. There's been some good interest there, and we are working through the details of a letter of intent on that right now for a potential reception center that we're pretty excited about. So in our sequencing, what we're trying to do is assuage the concerns that were shared, that every time you move to a new phase, that there's commercial and residential, which I believe we've done and should be reflected in that. And we've created an environment that we don't have exclusively just all the residential without any commercial. And that's what we heard from you is the primary concern in the last meeting. So I think it might be helpful at this point to make sure that it's understood that what we would be providing is, in those horizontal improvements, would be the pad-ready mixed-use lots, right? And we would also be providing the parking, the street, the utilities, all of those things through this central corridor.
Really quick, we got a question from Councilman Carn.
Oh, thanks. I think there was some confusion because I understand that what you're showing here is what's allowed in mixed use, but what you're showing here is a higher dense product than what we looked at a year ago.
Correct.
There's definitely a lot more residential in here.
Yeah.
And it's allowed, and I understand that.
Sure.
But when you say you're not giving us more density, you are giving us more density. It's allowed, and I get that. But you did put more density in this than what you originally showed us a year ago when we started the process.
So Chris, we actually gave them the development agreement and the zoning because they agreed to the previous numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really allowed because we have a development agreement as well.
Well,
Because we only gave them the zone because that was what we agreed to in terms of housing and commercial.
If I could, I want to ask a clarifying question, and it's based on something you just said. You said that at the completion of the construction of the mixed-use lots, then that would, just by creating the lots and doing the vertical improvements, that then would allow you to move into the next phase of development. Am I understanding your statement correctly?
Yeah, what we have presented in our notes and our narrative is that we're going to install all the horizontal in phase one. But upon starting commencement of vertical construction and the mixed use, in a mixed use building, that's what triggers our ability to go to the second phase.
So thank you. That's the clarification I'm trying to get to, because what you're suggesting is that, per your statement, the construction of one of those mixed-use buildings, just one unit, would then allow you to build almost 100 units of density without it staying proportionate or without it staying within its phase. Is that the correct interpretation?
Well, this is, I think this would be helpful for the council to understand. These are not individual one-off buildings. Like as you look at, say, my glasses.
96 through 106.
You don't just build a 96 by yourself. You know, you're building, this is this is a contiguous building. Now, whether that ends up being two structures or one structure, but it's important to understand, it's not going to be 11 individual structures, standalone structures.
So, and again, I'm trying to make sure that we are very clear on what phasing actually means, because in the end, staff is going to be required to kind of proportionally do that. But again, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because you're suggesting that by building the first 11 units or 12 units, whatever, then essentially you would have the right at that point to build 80, 90 units of housing for those 12 units or those 11 units.
Start a building, even occupancy, the start of building.
And I think that's what we're trying to understand is the nuance of what you're suggesting.
Correct. What the suggestion is that we're going to install all the improvements, the roadways, get everything pad ready. And what we're saying is we're going to immediately in phase one commence construction on there's single family, there's townhomes, and there's mixed use.
But when will you begin the
Okay, what we're
construction
saying-
of the vertical construction of the mixed-use buildings? You're saying at the horizontal improvements.
What we're saying is inside of phase one, but if you want to go to phase two, your next step in the sequence to phase two is that mixed-use building would be started.
Started is the key.
Does that mean lot improvements or
That means that
going up?
you put one block going upwards, then they're saying they need.
No,
Start building a wall.
I think it's important to understand, I mean, you're gonna permit the entire structure, you're going to commence construction. The reality around timing of a commercial building and an application process is slightly different than a fourplex of a townhome or a single family. So what the city, we believe it assuages the concern. You'll obviously decide if it does that, but you're not going to phase two unless you've got commercial coming in tandem. That was the request at the last meeting. And
Right,
that's
and-
what's been put forward.
Right, and thank you, and I apologize. I'm just trying to make sure that we very clearly understand that we generally do phasing and it's performance-based. And so in a situation like this, making sure that the mixed-use commercial buildings for that phase are meeting and keeping up with those phases of construction. And I've not quite heard you say that you will be keeping up, before you can move from phase one, all of the mixed-use buildings will be constructed. Whether there's occupancy in the commercial space, we're not guaranteeing that, but those will be constructed prior to you moving on to the next phase two.
What we're saying is, I don't know that the construction would necessarily be completed. What we've asked for is the flexibility in our phasing plan, that whether the mixed-use building was first, or the townhomes, or the single-family, what we don't want is within phase one, a limiting condition that if we're ready to move to phase two, right?
But what portion of phase two, though? Because again, I've heard the council in meetings talk about commercial being in tandem with it. And what I'm hearing you is I'm not hearing you commit to performance-based phasing. You're saying you could start with the housing, and prior to moving to the next phase, you would start the commercial, the mixed-use commercial. And what we're trying to do is understand how is this phasing actually going to work based on what you're proposing?
Well, the improvements are installed, and on vertical construction, that the mixed-use building on vertical construction would be started.
So theoretically, you could build 70 housing units and then come back and then start the commercial building. And then that lets you move forward to the second phase?
Well, based on our counts, and you'd have to zoom out for me on phase one in that
76.
table. Well, yeah. So in phase one, no, what would happen is, yes, you could build 55 and 15 and then build the mixed use. But before, you're not going to go to phase two until you have started and you are underway in your mixed use. I mean, one of the challenges that you have in a site like this is that we were specifically asked to not place a disproportionate amount of the commercial. The zone requires the commercial to be loaded and oriented to the water. That's what makes it specifically a mixed waterfront zone. So the ability, you're never going to be in perfect proportion, unit to unit, commercial to whatever. That's why the requirement in the code that has been approved and what you guys currently offer in the city, we have met the 49 to 51% mix. And that's why we're breaking it down here to show it phase by phase. It's disproportionate in certain phases because of the very nature of the code, of the requirement in this zone to keep it. So that's why you see we have very large commercial pads down by the water, right? The goal of this was to bring people through the neighborhood, to create this walkable environment, to have the trail integration, to get commercial that aligns in purpose to the lakeside, right? And so that's what we're doing. And so that's why we broke it down. If you look here on the phases, you'll see certain phases have a higher amount of commercial than others, right? We can't, but doing it performance-based to say that you get X number of units and exactly tied to this in an exact ratio, that's not something that the way your code is currently written that really fosters or enables that. So this is our best effort to make sure that we meet the intent, which the intent is, how do you get 50%, basically 49, 50% commercial and 50% residential? It just happens to be that the first phase has a disproportionate residential. Now, if you would have allowed us to have commercial up on the street, well, then this could have gone commercial much sooner at a higher percentage. But unfortunately, it's just the nature of the zone.
Right, and again, I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that we're very clear on what it is you're proposing, because I've heard the council talk about phasing, and we want to understand phasing. And based on the questions I've asked, I hope that we've kind of answered some of the questions that I've discussed with some of you. But ultimately, council, you'll want to consider how you make your motion based on the response that we've.
Councilman Comber, oh, Jeremy, really quick.
I just had a clarifying question. I think is there a limit? Like, if you do the residential in zone 1 and start the commercial and do all the residential in zone 2, is there a limit on how much residential before you cap and you have to catch up on the commercial? Is there?
Well,
any-
it's by phase. Great question. Yes, it's by phase. So
Can you jump to phase 3 if you've only started one? Do you have to finish the commercial in zone 1 before you jump to phase 3?
Yeah, I can
I guess I think that's the question is.
Sure.
So I want to offer just a summary. They do have, it's called this phasing narrative right here. And it is describing a situation where they can be in phase 1, any type of the units in phase 1. And then it says that they could start the residential in phase 2 while this mixed-use building's under construction. And then it says they could start the residential in phase 3 while the mixed-use building is under construction. Or if they do get the reception center, then that would fulfill their commercial, and then the way that they're proposing the
complete.
phasing, they are making a request to get ahead on residential. However, they are putting limits on themselves on when that commercial has to be
They're
completed.
not really, though. The thing is I'm Rob, right, Mayor?
Yeah.
So they can start construction on the mixed use and then go into 2. And then start the mixed use on 2 and go into 3, but never have to finish 1, never have to finish 2, and literally it's done. And we do allow commercial. Phase 4 does allow commercial on the road. So I just want to point that out. Second, I love how you keep saying that the zone allows this, but we had a development agreement because of this exact thing, coming in and saying, well, I'm meeting your code now. I'm meeting your code. I'm 49%, I'm meeting your code. It was in the rule, in the decision was made that it had to be phased. It has to be phased. You're now like less than 20% of your commercial in phase 1. And you said something, and I don't know the council caught this. Phase 2, we're getting the mixed use or the reception center, not both. Your percentage is claiming both. On your little 49%, you've got that as both. That's not the case, because you said you're going to get the mixed use on, or if we do the reception center, that would qualify you to be able to move then to 3. So I would love to see the green be the whole east side. Not necessarily down by the brown, potentially, but the yellow mixed use and the green, because we don't allow 11 buildings in a row anyway. We have to have a break in the building. That's in part of our code. We can't have 11 structures all in a row. Like, there has to be like 5 and 6 or whatever.
They'd have to meet our architectural standards.
Our architectural standards, and we have that in our architectural standard rules.
But it could vary in.
Right, but so I'm saying they could have a three unit building, and then that counts. And then they never come back. And I'm gonna let you use you said something, I'm gonna let you say your thing, because I think that was really interesting too about pulling out. Do you remember? Okay. So I think, so for me, the green coming down and being that whole section of the yellow and the green being green, then when you go to phase 2, you've got the reception center potentially. Then I'm feeling comfortable that I'm closer to what I was wanting in a 50-50 split as we phase. So it wasn't supposed to be, I want a 50-50 split at the whole project. The whole point was, that's what the code says. What we're saying is I want to see the 50-50 phasing as we go. If we do that, you're still not at 50-50 if you do the whole green with the yellow and that green, that's stacked there. But I believe, a good compromise for me, that we're moving in the right direction to what the intent of the council was. I'm not pleased with this huge increase in density that all of a sudden came, because that is a change, that is a request, and so that's something that needs to be discussed and considered as well. Turn the time back, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Porter?
Turn it off or whatever. Okay.
Keeps pushing buttons.
Well, I get the light turned off. Anyway. So I have a couple questions. This one's for staff. All right, well, I guess the first one is, just so that I understand, 96 through 117, you talk to them as mixed-use buildings where it has commercial in the front and then residential in the back? So-
Above.
Above. Is this similar to the product in North Shore? Is
No.
that-
No, it's, so it's commercial storefronts on the main
Okay.
level with, the
With the
roof
residents
would
on
be a
top.
balcony for the residents, and then the residential garages would be behind the commercial with
Got
the residential units above.
Okay, I'm remembering the images you guys showed.
Like
Okay.
this.
But it would actually be, it's actually a commercial storefront, not just a
Correct.
convertible office.
It is a commercial storefront.
That's one of my concerns was, there was talk about us not allowing commercial elsewhere in the development, which I don't believe was the intent of the zone. I know we do want to focus on the waterfront, but I don't think that we preclude you from putting commercial elsewhere. This is a much more commercial feel than like what's in North Shore, so I think that's okay. And I would agree that my biggest concern, just for historical purposes, for your edification, we've tried this multiple times in the city, mixed use, and every time they come in, they build all the houses, and then the commercial never gets built, ever. Like, we're still waiting down on the
Sergeant Court.
Sergeant Court and the Riverbend, we're still waiting for the stuff to get built. So it just doesn't happen. That's why all of our antennae are up when you say, well, we'll pour the foundations and then we can move on and build all the rest of the houses. I would feel much more comfortable, similar to what Jeremy was hinting at, that at least the building has to be, have undergone final inspection. I can't make you rent them before you move on, but I would like the building finished.
Occupancy, but not necessarily be occupied.
Sure.
Yeah.
It needs to be occupiable.
Yeah.
In phase one, they need to be finished before we move on to phase 3. Okay, I'm willing to go.
You're
phase
saying
3.
phase 3, but
Other people are saying phase 2. I'm willing to let you start and then move on to phase 2. I also like the idea, I'm also open to the idea of expanding down and
Along the east side.
along the east side and just having all of it come in at once. I'm open to a solution that is amenable to both sides, but realize we've been burned so many times, we're not looking to get burned again. And that's maybe not your fault, but you guys are the ones that are dealing with the repercussions of your fellow colleagues in this development community, so.
Councilman Podeska?
Yeah, so that's echoing what Councilman Porter was saying, that we've had a lot of developers that will go and build the residential products and then move on without finishing the product of commercial. And we've seen it in Orem as well. It's an eyesore for decades until they finally get someone to come in and finish it. And so that kind of goes to the more underlying discussion that I wanted to bring up is, I kind of feel like the mixed waterfront use is being missed, the vision of it. It's what I'm kind of feeling right now that's happening is, if I remember correctly, as far as when we changed the zoning to mixed waterfront for this area, it's because you're requesting for more density, and it would fit within that zoning. So we granted that zoning. because the city was getting this commercial in addition to that. And so now that you're in that zoning, we're hearing, well, no, we're within code. We're not asking for additional density. Well, that ask was already done and that was granted. So to not forget that kind of process that happened there. And so it's already a higher density project that would have normally been there. So having the mixed waterfront, we have that, and kind of missing the essence of mixed waterfront is there for the public to come and enjoy those areas. And so if it's just primarily focused on getting this residential built and the commercial is just an afterthought, not in the design. I do want to give credit where credit's due. I do like the product that's going along that main road. So I don't want to see that missed, of the commercial always being a byproduct of this project. It should be more of a focal point of this project. And so, yeah, as far as the phasing, I agree. When I was going through the packet, my assumption was that phase 2 could not be started until all of phase 1 was completed, including commercial. And so that was hard for me to hear on phase 2 also, that is an either or on the 2 commercial sites there. That changes the dynamics of it. And so the reason why with mixed waterfront, of having the focus more on the commercial with the residential being the byproduct, I understand that that's the moneymaker for the development to happen, but it needs to have that visual appeal going down that corridor for the commercial and for the mixed waterfront to meet its purpose of why we created that zone. Other than that, yeah, that's all I have.
Councilman Wilden?
You know, the mayor just actually mentioned something to me I would be comfortable with. Do you want to repeat it and then can I get it back?
Yeah. I was just saying with the phasing, if it is like it is, if you're in phase 1 and you start construction on the commercial block of buildings, the horizontal could happen in phase 2, but until phase 1 is done, there could be no permits pulled to build to go. Sorry, the vertical could be done. Yeah, vertical would be pulled. So phase 1, you could move forward with putting roads, sewer, all the underground in, so that when building 1's done, you could start going vertical in phase 2.
Yeah, like.
That way we're not holding up your horizontal.
Yeah, and I have
Our
no
engineer's
concern-
eager over here, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry,
You okay
Mayor.
if the,
What?
you okay if Jeremy?
No,
Waving his
Jeremy
hands.
will take forever, and then I'll forget, and it just, he's like the attorney.
Looked like one of those advertising balloons over there.
No, I would just say like, you know, phasing should be done similarly to what we do in other areas, but I like the mayor's proposal as well, is like, I have no concerns about moving forward with any horizontal phasing to get things ready. But again, similar comments to everyone else, if we do expand and you go back and want to make phase 1 larger, I wouldn't be interested in going to the next phase until that's done. I think there's some things that you guys can, so obviously not go in the direction you're hoping right now. And for me, I would prefer to table it so you can go back and look at it and work with staff. But I will say from my perspective, it's been said before, but when it was originally proposed to us, it was a less dense product. And if we would have stuck to that, I think at least for me and probably many of the other councils, we've been more flexible on the phasing approach. But the reality is, for me, you came in with a lot more density. Regardless of what you say, you came in with more density what was presented to us, which eliminates my willingness to be flexible compared to what we do with other developers.
Can I speak as to possibly, you know?
Let's go with Jeremy.
Who's my?
It's okay.
Okay.
Is it working now? Sorry.
Yes.
And if my voice is shaking, it's because I'm freezing to death. It is so cold in here. It feels like a door's open, but anyhow, I was part of that original, you know, when we came in and presented that. And here's some insight a little bit as to why that changed. It wasn't just us trying to come in and cram this down your throat. in the beginning stages of this, we've actually been working on this project now for almost 2.5 years. And in the beginning stages, there was so much confusion around this zone. Nobody really knew what it was supposed to be. The code was a little vague on some things. There was a lot of confusion. There was somebody else that was here in the city that we started with that is no longer here, and we were led down a path that was not clear. And so when we brought that plan in front of you, that is what we had been led to understand would be allowable. It wasn't until later when we were working on our other project, Harbor Springs, that we came to understand a little bit more about this zone we're working on for the past 2.5 years. We became a little bit more aware and understanding of what this zone should be and how to bring it to you. However, with as much time that had passed and some errors and some confusion during the design process, in order to bring a little bit more attainable housing for more residents, we needed to make a change to make this more a better opportunity, not only for you as a city to bring more commercial, but also as residents come in to housing a little bit more attainable. So it wasn't just done without thought or reason, and I don't want to get into all of those details here with you tonight, but there was purpose behind it. As far as where we're at today, we understand this is a very unique opportunity and a unique zone. It is beautiful property, beautiful views, and I am a resident here in the area, and I understand we need locations and areas to go on nice dates. We need areas to go and unwind with our family that's not so packed and crowded with, feeling like you're on Redwood Road. We want it to be quaint. We want it to have that feeling. That is why we put together the designs that we have put together. And we want it to be a beautiful, walkable Main Street. And with that being said, a lot of times it does take more time to build a commercial building than it does a residential building. And these two things go hand in hand because you can't have one without the other. To make this a destination type location, we have to have some residential going in to create the buzz to bring people here, because it is not your typical commercial site. It is destination commercial. And it's going to take some time for that to grow, and we want to invite and bring the right commercial here. And by trying to speed this up and build this commercial faster and faster, we may not end up with the right tenants. We want it to be walkable, shoppable, with shops and ice cream shops and restaurants and things of that nature. We have our real estate broker that's actually here tonight. He's a commercial broker that's already been marketing, advertising this area for us, trying to bring in the right commercial. With that being said, we do have a event center. They already owned 3 other event centers around Utah, so it's not a newbie. And they are very excited about this site. They've visited the site several times. They're working right now on their design and working with engineering to put together something that we can bring to you. And that is something that, has been going on for the last few weeks, and we're very excited about that. We also have a pending offer on the second lot that's on the west side. However, we feel like maybe that's not the best use of that site, and we have been talking with a boutique hotel. So what we have brought to you and the ideas that we had, we are actively pursuing. And that Main Street feel, the mixed-use buildings, there is a lot of opportunity there to make it so cool. But we've got to have a little bit of flexibility. That's why in that narrative it talks about, if it's 60 to 70% full, because we aren't building this with our own cash. We do have to go get bank lending. And banks are going to look at us and be like, you're doing what, where? We've got to show that there is the ability for it to grow. And so, and just so you know, our ability to actually make this successful for our group is very reliant upon the commercial and getting the commercial full. It is not just the residential portion. It has to have the commercial component. That is why we designed it the way we did, because if you can imagine just going there, walking down the trails, visiting the little shopping area, going, if you're there for a reception, you can go on a nice outing. I would love to get like a bike shop there, something where people can rent bikes and go out on the trails and those types of things. It just takes a little bit of time, but in order to keep this project moving forward and not kill it completely, we need a little bit of flexibility.
And we know that 145 North, what's going to happen with that continuation now that, Pony Express is coming down and looping? The reality is, at some point, this is getting expanded, right? We've had those conversations about what that's going to look like. The city's pursuing grants, to be able to do this. Make no mistake, that's going to be a little disruptive, depending on the timeline of when that happens for us. And so the flexibility was not to avoid building the commercial. Quite frankly, there is no project that pencils if you take half your land residential and half commercial and let it sit vacant. It just flat doesn't economically work. The economics aren't there. So the flexibility on the phase-to-phase, understand, it wasn't trying to overly shift the mix. It's just that we know we're going to have a road expansion. And unfortunately for us, the road is going to get expanded our side based on, power line location on the other side, right? So quite frankly, the right-of-way is going to be larger, impacted on our side. And we've acted in good faith and said, hey, we're going to work through that. We're going to figure out how to do that. We tried to design this to that intent. So understand that that's why when we came in last time, we had requested the flexibility to say, to do this phase by phase and not tried to tie it to the vertical. It wasn't to say we don't want to do it. It's to say there are some conditions that could be present between roads and this, that, and the other that would alter our timing, right? So what we hope is that there's not been a message that because we're asking for some flexibility, some timing and phasing, that means what we want to do is build out the residential and at some point in the future get to the commercial. Because it's also, for us, we're very aware that part of the reason you want to buy a townhome or a single-family home in this neighborhood is because of what is going to be there. And so, there's an expectation that they're going to have. They're going to look at these pictures and say, oh, wow, okay, that's going to be my little walkable area. That's where I get to put kids in a stroller and go down or get bikes. And and so, please understand, we're not asking for a phasing shift to alter change. As a matter of fact, last time it was even mentioned, hey, what would this look like? We want to make sure that nobody's going to come back in on these commercial and ask for more residential. And we've even said that we would be open to, a deed restriction or something. And then I guess it came up that even in our willingness to do that, maybe that doesn't work with contract zoning. It kind of creates a legal condition that the attorneys probably aren't going to be happy with, either our attorney or the city's. And so we said, okay, but that's the spirit of which we were willing to say, we're going to pay the money to curb and gutter and asphalt this and market it and sell it. We just can't fully say on the timing. And so we said, well, what if we take one phase and we let it be a set of dominoes? When the first phase goes, you go to the second. When the second goes, you go to the third. That's the intent, right? And if we haven't communicated that clearly enough, we'll accept that, and that's our responsibility. But I hope that is truly what our intent is.
And the event center, once that starts getting constructed, that's going to take a little bit to get built. That's not going to build out as fast. Same with the hotel. It's going to take time.
We understand that it takes time. We understand commercial. If I was to have to vote right now, I'll tell you this, I would be denying. And so I really like Stephen's comment about maybe we come back and we work through the lack of communication where, when I see my engineer, who's probably one of the most mellow people I know, sort of getting heated up because he's worried that you can just start pouring some foundations in 1, go to 2, start pouring some foundations in 2, and move to 3 without actually finishing anything. That says something to me, and that puts a concern in my history. I mean, I've done this 14 years now with the city. So for me, I don't want to deny it. So I'm hoping that we can move towards potentially tabling this and getting this resolved and come back with a solution that I can feel comfortable with.
Councilman Porter?
All right, I guess you called on me. And I appreciate that you guys seem to have caught the vision. Our concern is, and this happens and you know it happens, that, you know, you guys get your entitlements and work on this for a year, you build the first set of houses, whatever. You know, stuff happens, you got your business plans changed, you sell the property off to somebody else, and they're held to not the vision that you guys have. They're held to whatever's on the paper that we approve. So that's a concern we have. And I mean, as far as the flexibility, I mean, again, I may be the only person that feels this way, but what I was suggesting is that you would only have to have 25% of your Main Street commercial finished to be able to get all the way to phase 4. And so the fact that you're not even willing to, that's too much, this doesn't give us any flexibility, gives me pause.
Yeah, we're willing to do that.
I think we are, so that's
Yeah.
why, let's make sure we understand. So can you articulate that? Could you?
You're saying what
Sure. Would you articulate that again? I want to make sure. So what you were suggesting was?
You go vertical on phase 1, you're allowed to do phase 2. You finish the commercial in phase 1 before you're allowed to go to phase 3.
3.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then, I mean, phase 4 is all commercial, so you can start that whenever you want.
So in essence, adding a completion requirement of phase 1, could we start the horizontal improvements in phase 3, but what you're saying is before you are going to pull a permit in phase 3, I guess it's their seasonality, you know, if it's the end of winter.
I don't
Yeah.
care about horizontal improvements, because that's pretty good roads, that's gonna cost
Right.
money.
It's
Yeah.
just our problem is like we you know, asphalt stopped 2 weeks ago. And so we're constantly battling how fast can we get that in before winter and things like that. So as long as that can occur.
Jeremy?
I just wanted to, don't want to not trying to interject on the density stuff, but merging it, one thing I'm noticing is that I don't see a connection to Pony Express or 145 with phase 1. And it doesn't look like there's no way to get from the Main Street over until you build phase 2. And I don't think the intent is to push all the traffic through Loch Lomond. So I'm wondering, would a simpler solution be if you just combine phase 1 and phase 2? That gives them access to the entire residential products in phase 1 and phase 2, gets us the infrastructure we need to have the Main Street built so access can come through, and they can't move to phase 3 until they just finish all the commercial and residential in the combined phase 1 and phase 2, because what I hear them saying is there's not enough residential product in phase 1 to justify the completion. They need more access to more residential products. So if we just combine phase 1 and phase 2, my main concern here is the access. And I don't want to see all these homes accessing through Loch Lomond. And I don't see the horizontal improvements giving them access without the completion of the horizontal in phase 2. So I guess if the council, that's about 95 units. So I don't know if the council's comfortable giving them access to 95 units. It makes me better because I want to see the road infrastructure built all at once. So that the first car to the first home comes off of 145, not through Loch Lomond. Loch Lomond's a secondary access, not the primary. And that seems to require the horizontal in phase 2. So if you just combine the 2 phases, does that resolve all these issues?
Could I make a comment regarding that? Sorry to be so loud. Move back. Councilman Porter and McCumber, I think we can accomplish what both of you are envisioning, and I'm sorry, Jeremy. I think that was our desire, was actually to combine phase 2, and we're okay with that. And I like what you're saying, having the completion of that first building before we move on to phase 3. I think we are willing to do all that. The problem is, I think, this would have been better to have something where we sat down and be able to walk through this phasing plan first, because I think we could accomplish that.
Well, I'm happy to represent the council and then one other person if we want to do that and get it done.
Councilman Wilden?
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, I can do that, but with Councilman McComber, what he was suggesting, I'm happy to sit down and go through that. But, like I said before, I don't feel comfortable approving this today. I don't want to issue you guys a denial though, because I think we can work through something with staff and a one-off, and so that would be my preference, is to table it until,
We're 99% of the way there.
yeah. You may have,
I think
by the
if-
time you come back, it may be a slightly altered council.
Yeah, I think if we knew.
Yeah.
I think while we certainly, it's not our preference to table it, but if we understood that was, we're going to have time to get together and to really work out these kinks, so that, quite frankly, third time's the charm, right? So we come in here to your January meeting, and we have the ability to say, hey, we've sat down, we've heard these concerns, we've worked through the little nuances, and if we need a little bit of a refresh on this or slightly different wording, then I think we would be, was that fair to say, we would be in agreement with that, right? Because we also want this to be, our goal is always unanimous, and that means that we have alignment. So if that's the case, Councilman Wilden, we would certainly be okay with tabling that if the agreement was we could work through this between now and the next meeting.
That's the only reason you would table it. And
Right.
let's be clear too, if you need something before the end of the year, we're so close to Chris's point. If we had to work through this and then do a Zoom call before the holiday kind of thing, because we don't have another session in,
Right.
December. They can still jump on, like,
I mean, it's probably an hour meeting in the event.
if that.
Right.
We've done all the work, right? Yeah.
It's just making sure that we really don't like to
Yes.
legislate up here and completely change what came in to something else. 'Cause
So-
we're missing stuff. Staff hasn't had time to look it over.
We totally agree with that. We are so close, and if, I'm hearing everything that you guys have proposed, we can accomplish, but you're right. If we can do that in a Zoom meeting, I'm more than happy. You tell us the date, the time, we're there.
Microsoft Teams is way better, just to be.
Yes.
I hate Zoom so bad.
Well, no, it's fine either way. I call it Zoom for anything.
Oh, yeah, I'm kidding.
I do want to ask whoever makes the motion to include that direction in the motion. It does say, continuation, but then it says providing the applicant and staff information to render a decision for next time. So if you could include that direction in your motion, that would be very helpful.
Councilman Modesto has a comment.
Yeah, I just had just some final comments on this. So, in my comment regarding I felt like you guys were missing the vision. That was just in the phasing part. As far as the look, I just want to make sure that you're aware that I support the look of the product that you're doing. I think it looks
You
great.
said that last time. I did pick that up from the back row.
And so in clarification of that, whenever we're talking through this whole discussion tonight, I think the verbiage that's been being used is as if the whole Main Street has been built. And so when you're talking about walkable space connecting to the trails, that's pretty much when the whole project is finished. And so what I'm looking at is the first 8 years before it's not finished, of what that's going to look like. And it's really just going to be that east side corridor that's going to be finished. And so my recommendation would be in the phasing layout is to include that little brown rectangle on the bottom right as part of phase 2. If you can go back to that, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about the
little brown one on the bottom right. Just so it, and yeah, so in southeast.
No, the 1/8 through the 123.
Southwest.
What you mean 118 to 123?
Yeah, 118 to 123. And so that way that
You're saying, can we?
in the first two phases, It actually finishes the connections to all the trails. And so they have that walkable space all along those stores to the trail systems. And so like you're saying about the bike rentals and things like that, they actually have access and they're not waiting years because of phase 3. And so that's just my recommendations, but thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Just, there was talk about the motion being something about sending it to staff to work out with the applicant. And it was talked about earlier that perhaps 2 councilmen could be involved there. I just wanted to make sure that we are including council. I think that'd be very important to have that council representation in that conversation.
Well, is it,
Got it.
I thought it was coming back. I thought I was, no? Okay.
When they meet with staff.
Oh, okay, great.
Prior to.
Councilman Wilden and Councilman McComber have volunteered. So Councilman Carn, are you jonesing to make a motion at this point? It sounds like it's going to be tabled. Or McComber?
He's
So-
not sure, so he wants.
Can I recap what I heard? Combine phase 1 and 2 and including the east portion of the
But
Brown?
we're just tabling it, and we're gonna have a breakout session, and we're gonna
Okay,
work that out.
well-
We're not gonna do anything here today.
And also on that, I would like to make sure that this exhibit is very clear when it comes back so that you all are knowing exactly what you're agreeing to and very comfortable with.
And I think it's super important staff understand what triggers moving on to the phase, because that's concerning for me when the staff's like, oh, what is that? I'm not being critical, but like, that means not enough information been provided to them when it's like, oh, what does that exactly mean? We just can't have that ambiguity and put whoever goes out, it's not planning.
Ryan
Who
is
goes
gonna-
out and does the inspections? Is it the
Ryan-
building or? building department?
It's the whole
Ryan's
development team.
jonesing to make his last motion.
So yeah, are we good to go?
We're good.
Yep,
Okay.
go for it.
So I motion on business item number 4 to table or continue this item with the having 2 city council members join in on the conversations with staff and applicant so that everything get ironed out before next time.
You want a second?
I know, I'll second it.
Oh, no,
and-
no.
Oh, Porter, go ahead. I have a comment.
Second. Okay, I got a first from Councilman Bedeska, second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion?
Yes, the mayor volunteered me, I think, to participate in the discussion, did
It
you?
was
That was Wilden and me.
Palmer.
Oh, great.
Nope, I didn't.
More power to you guys.
You got no voluntold.
Okay.
Okay. Councilman Carn,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Pedeska.
Aye.
Motion.
We'll do it quickly. Perfect, let's do it quickly.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank
Closed
you.
session tonight? No?
No closed session.
Yes, we have to adjourn into quick,
The LBA.
The LBA.
yes. Okay, we're going to start the local authority of the city of Saratoga Springs, Utah, Tuesday, December 5th at 7:39 PM. Present tonight, I have the following board members: Pedeska, McComber, Wilden, Carn, and Porter. We have that. We have item 1, consideration of the approval of the November minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a first from trustee McComber, trustee Carn. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I will adjourn us from that meeting. We'll go back into the city council meeting, and we are adjourned.
So when are we gonna have
Hold on.
the meeting to?
Really quick, for those here. Really quick, Councilman Podesta and Councilman Porter have been with us a long time. They didn't rerun this last election, so this is their final council meeting. So we just wanted to recognize them for their service to the city with their official street signs. And then we have these plaques that have a map of the city with their years of service. Councilman Podeska from 2017 to 2023. We appreciate your service to the city.
Can you look at me? Gotta go on Facebook.
And then Councilman Porter from 2016 to 2023.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.